In this video, we'll look at the relationship between the Vatican and the Nazis. Firstly, let's consider a quote from Iserman. He wrote, "You couldn't say, well, I'm converted to Christianity or I'll dig trenches for a living and hope not to be tortured and killed." I've previously shown how highly inaccurate this statement is in the notes when it applies to the Nazi puppet state of Croatia under Ante Pavelic. In Germany, the situation was a little different. A Jew had to convert up front. So let's look at the symbiotic relationship between the Nazis and the Vatican. If a Jew did a course in Catholicism, the Church would provide a false Catholic identification certificate stating that the person was born Catholic. Whilst Catholic spin doctors point out that the Church was helping Jews to evade Nazi extermination, it was a cosy relationship that also benefited the Church. They stood and hoped to gain potential converts. Despite the Holocaust being one of the worst crimes in human history, the Vatican was almost silent on the issue. A better understanding of where Catholic sympathies lie may be gained from considering the Vatican Ratlines. The Vatican Ratlines were an escape network established by the Vatican that allowed Nazis and Croatian war criminals to evade capture and conviction at the end of World War II. The routes ran from monasteries in Rome to safe havens in South America, Arabia and even Australia. Alois Hudel was a Roman-based bishop of Austrian descent. At the end of World War II, he helped to set up what became known as the Vatican Ratlines. Hudel had nothing but contempt for the victors. "I felt duty-bound after 1945 to devote my whole charitable work mainly to former National Socialists and fascists, especially to the so-called war criminals." In an interview, Monsignor Bayer recalled how he and Hudel had helped Nazis to escape to South America with the Vatican's financial support. "The Pope," he said, "did provide money for this in driblets sometimes, but it did come." So it came from Catholic charity. So who were these so-called war criminals? Catholic Nazi and Croatian officials. They included Franz Stangl, commander of the Treblinka extermination camp where 850,000 people were put to death. SS Captain Eduard Rushman, the butcher of Riga. Dr. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death at Auschwitz. Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust, and as an SS lieutenant colonel who was responsible for rounding up Jews and bringing them to the death camps. Ante Pavelic, head of the Croatian puppet state responsible for the death of over 1 million people. And of course Klaus Barbie, the butcher of Leon, and many more. 30,000 fugitive Nazis escaped to South America alone. In other words, they were all good Catholic boys. Next, which atheist said the following? "The papacy is truly the real power and tyranny of the Antichrist." Martin Luther. And again, which atheist said the following? "We maintain that the government of the Church was converted into a species of foul and insufferable tyranny." John Calvin. Which atheist had Michael Servetus burnt at the stake? Michael Servetus was burnt at the stake in Geneva for holding a differing theological position on the Trinity to that of the Protestant and Catholic churches of his day. John Calvin. He recognised Michael Servetus when Michael attended one of his church services. He had him arrested and charged with blasphemy. Calvin provided personal correspondence as evidence to the trial and recommended that Servetus be given the death sentence. Iserman said, "To confuse political opportunism with religious conviction is just retarded." Now, Jesus Christ was the master of all political opportunists. There are still some people that worship him to this very day. I hope that you don't confuse political opportunism with religious conviction. The claim that someone is a political opportunist can be levelled at anyone. Oh, and the Pope is a political opportunist too. We all know that politicians can be political opportunists, as can any other authority figure. But political opportunism does not preclude religious conviction. Otherwise, the only politician that we could trust would be an atheist. Then again, we may be onto something. The conclusion. 1. There was a symbiotic relationship between the Vatican and the Nazis. 2. The Vatican Ratlines demonstrated where the sympathy of the Vatican lay. And 3. Like Martin Luther and John Calvin, Adolf Hitler was a church reformer. You would have to be demented to blame atheism for Christian reformational infighting.